This
One
conference
mentioned
will now
candidates
be
get into,
recorded.
right, so we have just kicked in the recording. So as Pavan mentioned, that over the last few years, I have been helping several candidates get into top tier MBA programs. And every year I get to help at least one or two candidates get into deferred MBA programs. Right, so that is about my background. I would also request Pavan to share a few links to the work that I've done in the past, and he can share all those details with you guys so that you can learn more about admissions to deferred MBA programs, and we can send out a lot of useful information on how you should go about building your profile. So on today's session, as Pavan mentioned, we'll be covering three different areas. One is about career options and deferred MBA, what exactly it is. We will speak more about deferred MBA programs and its application process. And towards the end, we will leave a little bit of time for Q&A. Unfortunately, I have a medical emergency, so I'll need to leave in like next 30 minutes. So from that point on, Pavan will take over the session. So I will try to sort of share my insights with you on deferred MBA options very, very quickly. And I'll get to the core issue today right off the bat. Right. So I think the first thing that we should know about deferred MBA program is that, see, whether you get into an MBA program or a deferred MBA program or pursue a master's degree or pursue a PhD, it is a means towards an end, right? So recently I was speaking at NIT Trichy. I can see a few names of people who must have attended my session there. What I was sort of very interested to figure out there was that I spoke with a lot of students there. They were very confused about their career options that they had. So essentially speaking, right, I mean, I'm sure that, all of you are in your final year or like in second or third year of your undergrad degree right now, and you must be thinking about your career path. So there are essentially three type of career paths that you can pursue from this stage. So the first is that you can become a specialist, right? So somewhat similar to the career path that Dr. Raghuram Rajan took. So he pursued a PhD. So a lot of people are interested in pursuing a PhD or a highly specialized program, right? So that is your career option one in college that people think about. And if you're clear about this career path, it's very easy to pursue, right? I mean, you would know already that, okay, my interest is in PhD in data science or management, and you would start working towards that path right off the bat. So that career path is very, very clear. The second category or the second career path that you can look at is, and which is getting very, very popular these days, is entrepreneurship. So for example, what Kylie Jenner did. So again, if you are someone who is clear about pursuing entrepreneurship, you would know about it. So you would have started companies, or you would be actively getting engaged with the entrepreneurship club of your college. So that is again a very easy career path or a clear career path to assess, right? Now, the third career path is where it gets confusing. And to a certain extent, even Mr. Sundar Pichai was confused about it. So, for example, he initially worked with McKinsey. So, I'm not sure if Pavan had a chance to work with him. So, Pavan also worked at McKinsey. Then he did his MBA. Then he, at one point in time, he pursued his master's degree in engineering, and then he ended up working with a tech company, Google, and now he's definitely the CEO there. So the point is that, when you look at the corporate career track, people hop around quite a lot. It's very difficult for them to ascertain what kind of career path to pick within the corporate domain, because it's such a wide corporate domain, right? So let me just elaborate a little bit more and try to help you understand that how, irrespective of which corporate career track you pick, a deferred MBA program would be a good option for you to follow. Okay, so before I move on to analyzing these different documents, I will just quickly speak a little bit more about the career tracks. Pawan, I don't think I can scroll. I don't have
Okay.
the option to scroll. Yeah, yeah. So if you can
So you
just,
want me to
yeah,
skip this pages?
yeah, yeah.
This
Okay,
one?
just no, the next one.
Okay.
The next one after this. Right.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. So, okay. So, just to give you a brief overview of what type of career paths you can pursue within the corporate track, there are essentially three type of jobs you can look at. Right. For example, number one type of jobs are gold standard jobs, right? Now it's very easy to understand what these gold standard jobs are. These are jobs with major consulting firms like BCG, Bain, McKinsey. Then there are highly specialized management consulting firms, for example, Dalberg, Bridgespan, FSG, etc., which are considered to be top tier. Then if you want to take a career path in finance, then there are top investment banks, for example, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, etc. If you want to work in private equity and venture capital firms such as Sequoia, these are all considered as gold standard jobs, right? If you want to do something slightly different, for example, if you want to become a bureaucrat, that pursuing an option like Indian Administrative Services or Indian Revenue Service is generally considered gold standard, right? Or if you want to work with, let's say, Asian Development Bank or Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, these are all considered as gold standard jobs. Now, all of us want to do gold standard jobs, right? I mean, Pawan has worked with McKinsey. I have worked with a few of these firms. So all of us aspire to get to these jobs. At one point in time, Pawan and I were also trying to get these jobs. So we know what it takes to get these gold standard jobs, right? The issue is that a lot of times, for example, if I turn around and ask you guys that, hey, can you tell me how many gold standard firms come to your campus? You would hardly be able to name two or three key firms that come, right? And that too, if you are at IIT. So Pawan and I last year were speaking at IIT Bombay, and we were very worried that even at a school like IIT Bombay, there were just handful of gold standard firms that were visiting the campus, right? Because the issue is that in India, the number of gold standard jobs are very few. I think we have a comment, Pawan. Just let me see. Okay, so guys, we will be answering the questions in a bit. Let us just quickly go through the presentation and then we will come to answering the questions all at once. So basically that's the point about gold standard, that all of us want to get there, but the issue is that the pathway to get there is very limited for us. And again, I can see a lot of people from NIT Trichy joining this webinar. So if I ask you guys that, how many gold standard firms visit your campus, it would be very difficult for you to name even a few firms from this list, right? So this is a standard problem that is there across all the major colleges in India. If you look at silver standard firms, so these would be firms like PwC, which is considered to be one of the top 5 or 6 firms. You have ZS Associates, you have Deloitte. In finance, you will hardly see, good companies recruiting from campus. You will have like tier two finance firms or tier two VC firms. You will never see a company like Sequoia Capital recruiting from any of the NITs, for example, right? So it's very difficult to sort of get these gold standard jobs. If you want to work, if you are aspiring even for silver standard jobs, for example, if you want to work with Amazon in India or GSK and PNG, even those companies do not visit a majority of campuses in India, right? Most of us unfortunately end up taking bronze standard jobs. They work in IT firms, or they end up working with a ton of small scale startups. So I'll not take names here. I think you get the point that I was trying to establish. So that is the major point, right? And this leads to a lot of confusion, right? So when you are actually, because when you are in your undergrad, you aspire to work with these gold standard firms, you are left with no path, the companies are not coming, and then you will make some incorrect decisions along the way. And most of us start our careers by working with bronze standard firms, and throughout our career the fight is to transition from this bronze standard to gold standard firm. So please comment, and if you guys can sort of counter me here if you do not agree with this viewpoint. But this is generally what I feel. So any comments, Pawan, on this?
Anybody?
All right. Okay. So guys,
Yeah.
this leads to a lot of confusion.
Yeah. So my one other point as well, Akshat, is a lot of actually firms which even, let's say, JP Morgan that come into NITs or even IITs, they don't hire for typical finance roles. Right? They hire for either an IT role or they don't hire for the most important roles that those guys are working on, and that's again not considered to be a gold standard role. So you might be working for a top tier company, but if you're not in their front office, or if you're not working for the most important role over there, then again you can't put it in that last bucket of the gold standard. And yes, so I myself started with bronze standard. So I started my career with Accenture. Very quickly realized that yes, 6 months into my career, I realized that yes, this is not the place where I want to be. It was a struggle to get into McKinsey, but that was the place where I eventually ended up, and that's where I always try to move towards. And I see a lot of folks trying to do the same thing.
Brilliant, brilliant. All right, Pawan. So can you open up those resumes that I had sent you on the earlier part of our
Yes,
conversation?
yes.
Yeah. All right. I think I have the control now. Okay. Yeah. Cool, cool, cool. All right, guys. So I'll further consolidate on this point by showing you two actual resumes of clients that I've worked with in the past, and I would sort of do a thought exercise with you here, and I would uh, request you to just go through this resume, whatever you can understand, and try to guess what this person was trying to do next in his or her career. Okay, so the broad snapshots are that this person was pursuing a PhD in biomedical engineering in 2016, and before that, he had graduated from IIT Kanpur, worked, did a lot of in-semester internships, and during PhD he worked on certain kind of jobs, and eventually he was pursuing PhD. So what was he trying to do next? It's okay, Parth. You don't need to see the screen. Actually, these are screenshots, so it might not be very clear. But the point that I'm trying to make is that, okay, just listen to me here, that this person graduated from IIT Kanpur. Then he pursued a PhD, and meanwhile, he did a ton of internships and project work all across the world. So he worked in UK, he worked in Singapore, etc. And my question to you is that what was this person trying to do next in his career, in terms of which degree was he trying to pursue, what kind of career path he was trying to imagine for himself?
Any guesses, guys?
Okay, all right. So
Any?
someone said research, MPA. Okay, guys. So Disha, Shreyank. So basically, this person was trying to get into a top tier MBA program after a PhD. Right now, let's move on to the next resume. And again, the same exercise that this person graduated from BITS Pilani, then he graduated from IIM Calcutta PGDM program. He was working with Kotak Mahindra, which is a leading investment bank in India. It's one of the top investment banks in India. So he was doing very well as an investment banker in India. So what was his next career move? So again, the same exercise, and the answer still remains the same, that he was trying to get into a top tier MBA program. Now, you guys might turn around and ask me that, hey, why was this person or a PhD guy was trying to do an MBA? The reason was that in this particular person's case, who was working with Kotak Mahindra, who had graduated from IIM Calcutta, his reason was very simple, that he was in investment banking and he was doing investment banking in India, and he wanted to do investment banking in New York. Why? Because he wanted to be at the top of his field. Now, he could only make a switch to New York if he had a useful degree from the US. So, therefore, he was looking to do an MBA from abroad. So, this career path makes a lot of sense once I told you the complete picture, right? But still, he ended up spending like 2 additional years doing an MBA from IIM Calcutta. And basically, I can actually tell you the name of this person. So, his name is Anirudh Sankha. So, he actually worked with me. He is currently uh, studying at London Business School, and he can either work in New York now or take up a banking job in Europe. So basically, he can work at the top of his field. So now you guys can turn around and ask me that, hey, why did he spend 2 years doing an MBA from IIM Calcutta, and did he waste his degree in 2 years pursuing IIM Calcutta if his eventual goal was to do an MBA from abroad and settle abroad and work in investment banking abroad? Then what was the rationale of pursuing an IIM Calcutta degree? So that is exactly my point, right? A lot of times we don't know what we want from our career. We are very confused. So we end up pursuing a certain degree. Then our career shapes in a certain manner. And then we eventually end up pursuing an option which we are happy with. So that is exactly what happened with this particular person, right? On the previous case, the PhD candidate case, his story was that he wanted to get out of research. He was already research. He was already researching, right? So, for example, you can read from his resume that he was working with Rolls-Royce. He was working as a PhD research scholar with the Biomedical Center in Singapore. So he was not really enjoying his work despite pursuing a PhD. So he wanted to get out of that field. Therefore, he was applying for MBA programs. So the point I'm trying to make is I'm not trying to bash these people. I think all of us, including Pawan and me, we are confused about our careers and we don't know. How to plan things. We execute a certain option depending on the kind of opportunities we are getting, but we always keep an eye out for growth opportunities. Now I think during our time when Pavan and I were applying for MBA programs, we did not even have a deferred MBA option at that stage. We are quite old, right, from that perspective. But the point that we are trying to make here is that no matter at which stage of career you are at, you have innumerate options, right? Important thing to notice that you need to plan your career in advance, because if you plan your career in advance, if you're clear about the things that you want, it can help you save a lot of time, right? On the previous two examples that I showed you, on the two stories that I shared with you, both of those guys were excellent, right? I mean, a person getting into IIM Calcutta would have had definitely gotten a score of 99.5 percentile plus. So he must have been smart. The other guy had graduated from IIT Kanpur. He had done a PhD. So obviously he must have been smart. So it's sad to see a lot of smart people not make useful choices, which end up wasting a little bit of time in their life, right? So don't fall into that category if an option presents itself. But I'm not saying that they have wasted their time, so to quote. But if there is an option for you to be planned and thorough in your approach and take a forward looking approach in your life, do that, right? Plan your career in advance. It is going to save you a lot of time. Second is that, as you can see from previous two examples, both those people needed to get more brand equity on their resume, right? For example, a degree from IIM Calcutta was not allowing that person to move into an investment banking role in New York or in Europe. So therefore, he wanted to get a top tier MBA program on his resume. So which proves that brand equity really matters on your resume. So this is an important point to note, that you should aim to get good brand equity. It's completely okay if you're not making good salary. So when I started my first job, so in my first job, I was getting paid a salary of approximately 18,000 to 20,000 rupees a month, right? So that was my first job out of college. Uh, I worked in that job for close to 3 years, right? And literally, I was spending money out of my pocket to do that job. My job was to work with a cabinet minister, so I was his speech writer. And at that time, it was, yes, the jobs sounds really good and interesting, but in terms of the financial return, it was not giving me any money whatsoever, right? So the point I'm trying to make, it was not even good for sustenance, right? I mean, I was living in a city like Delhi, and I was not making any money, right? Close to 3.5 years. But I did that for brand equity, right? So this brand equity really matters, right? So just make sure that you understand that brands really matter on your profile, especially when you are starting out your career. It can really help you out. And final point is that be clear about your career choices. Now, this third point is slightly complicated, because if I just tell you that, hey, be clear about your career choices, it's not as if that you will become clear about your career choices, right? You will only become clear about your career choices if you experiment with certain options that you like. For example, if you're confused about pursuing a management degree versus pursuing a PhD, then apply to like a bunch of PhD programs, apply to a bunch of management programs. Wherever you get the best offer from, pursue that, right? That falls into category two, which is wherever you are getting the best brand equity, it will be a good option to pursue. So that is where I think a deferred MBA is a great choice for you guys, because and now at this stage we can move into speaking a little bit more about what deferred MBA programs are. So basically, on deferred MBA programs, the target audience are the final year undergrad and graduate students. So if you are in the final year of your college, or if you are in the final year of your graduate school, And if you don't have any work experience, any formal work experience where you have dropped out of college, gained 1 year of work ex, something like that, then you will qualify for this program. So to put it simply, if you have after class 12th, if you have enrolled at your undergrad, and if you are still there in the undergrad school, you will qualify for this program. You can apply. Similarly, if after undergrad, so you graduate from 12th, you go to your undergrad program, and then you directly pursue your masters without having any work ex in between, then again you will qualify for deferred MBA program. So these are the target audience. Now, these programs are offered by a ton of top tier MBA programs. For example, Stanford has a program called as Stanford Deferred Admission. Harvard has a program called as Harvard 2+2. Yale has a program called as Yale Silver Scholars. ISB also has a variant of it. Darden also has a variant of it. A lot of new programs have been started in just last year. So Columbia has started it, Chicago Booth has started it, MIT Sloan has started it. So a ton of programs have started coming up, and they are all targeting young students, right? So who do not have any work ex, and these programs at the end of the day, these are MBA programs only. So don't get confused with the name deferred MBA. These are MBA programs. You study from the same professors, you study the same curriculum, you get an MBA degree at the end of the coursework. So from that perspective, it's a simple MBA program, right? So don't get confused there. The only thing is that every course, so all these courses that I've mentioned, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, etc., they might have a slightly different program format. So just to compare, for example, if you graduate from Yale Silver Scholars Program, or if you get accepted in Yale Silver Scholar Program, your acceptance letter will be given to you in the final year of your undergraduate degree. So in your fourth year, if you are doing engineering, you will receive an admit. Then immediately after graduating from college, you will spend 1 year at Yale. And then you will take a break of 2 years to pursue some kind of work experience. And then you will come back and complete your degree from Yale. So essentially, you will spend 1 year right after undergrad. Then you will have 2 years work ex, and then plus one more year to come back and complete your MBA. Now, if you get accepted to Stanford Deferred MBA program, then the program format is slightly different. So there what happens is that you will get your acceptance letter in the final year of your undergrad, and then you will work for 2 years, right? And then you will come back and complete your MBA from Stanford, right? So that is the program format at Stanford. So at both these places, you are getting your MBA degree 4 years after graduation from your undergrad, right? So any
Hey,
questions so far that you guys are currently
Akshat,
thinking? Yeah.
yeah, good.
Okay, right. So Arjun and Devang have asked me a couple of questions. So hey Akshat, I'm currently, so Devang asks that I'm doing an internship by taking a semester off from my college. Would this make me ineligible to apply? Devang, I don't think so. An internship is not equivalent to a job. You're not dropping out of college, so you'll be completing it. So I don't think that this will have any bearing on your profile. So you can apply. It should not be an issue. Arjun asks that will applying to a lot of universities. Okay, right. So Arjun, this is a very important question, and a lot of students ask me this. So the short answer is no. It would not have any bearing. So what Arjun is asking that he's saying that hey, if I apply to let's say Stanford, Harvard or Yale's deferred MBA program right now, and if I don't get accepted, and then I decide that I would want to get some work experience, 4 or 5 years, and then apply to these programs for their regular MBA, would it have any bearing on my profile or acceptance chances later on? The short answer is no. The application that you would submit now as a deferred MBA applicant would have absolutely zero correlation with the application that you will be submitting 4 or 5 years down the line. Right. Okay. So yeah. So I think this is about deferred MBA programs basics.
Hey,
Now
there's
one.
one more question,
Sure.
Akshat.
Yeah. So Sambhav asks that what would be the best time to give the GMAT, right, Sambhav? So I'll just cover this in a minute on the application section, right? So just give me a minute. I'll just reach to that slide and I'll explain this in slightly more detail.
Shall I move ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so guys, this is an important point. I'll come back to this again, that how are deferred MBA programs beneficial for you? So the first benefit we already spoke about, that it helps you target these gold standard jobs, because if you graduate from Stanford or Yale or Darden's deferred MBA program, you get access to all these companies. So this is the first key advantage and a very clear advantage. The second benefit of a deferred MBA program is the flexibility. Now you can imagine this, that if you're getting an acceptance from Yale or Stanford or Harvard in the final year of your undergrad, then you would know about the outcome already, right? Then you can navigate your career choices according to that. For example, you don't unnecessarily need to write a ton of exams. Like, a lot of people write government exams also, they write CAT also, they write like UPSC preparation also, they apply for 500 different jobs also. So you don't need to do all that, right? You can actually handpick things that you want to do. You can pursue those. It could be that you want to travel the world, or you want to spend time tutoring, or you want to build your own business. So if you're getting an acceptance letter from Stanford which says that, hey, come join us 2 years after you graduate, 2 years after graduating, and that decision is fixed, then you can do whatever you want in those 2 years that you are left with. Okay, so this is the flexibility that a deferred MBA program offers, and it's a great flexibility to have, because you might be speaking with a lot of your seniors who have graduated from college and they are not happy with the kind of options that they are getting, and they will keep on experimenting with a lot of different things, like writing different exams, interviewing for so many different firms, and it's a big hassle. So it saves you a lot of hassle, right? The third point is that a deferred MBA program allows you to create a leverage. Now, let me explain this in slightly more detail, right? So, so Pavan and I keep getting asked a lot of times that, hey, Akshat, Pavan, can you please tell us how to get a job at McKinsey or BCG or Dalberg, etc., etc. We are very happy telling you guys all that information. A lot of people say that, hey, can you, sort of forward my resume to these companies? Even if we do it, it's not going to be beneficial, right? Because if we just say that, okay, person X from this college wants to work at Dalberg, now imagine how many people at Dalberg would be receiving such requests, right? They would be getting such requests all the time. So if your resume does not have anything impressive, even internal referrals would not work, right? However, on the flip side, if you can write on your resume that, okay, accepted at Stanford, would be starting Stanford in 2 years, and at that stage you reach out to Pawan or Akshat and ask us to refer you, we will be more than happy doing it, and our referral at that stage would have a much higher probability of working out, right? So you can create that leverage by getting acceptances. You can reach out to firms like BCG, Bain, McKinsey, etc. You can look for internships, externships. You can look at part-time work with like top firms and top startups. So yeah, so this is the leverage that a deferred MBA program allows you to create, even if you're not eventually going to join a deferred MBA, right? So I hope I'm able to convey these points well. In case you guys have any questions, you can ask us what would be the ideal resume. Okay, Yash, I'll come to that question in a minute. So yeah, Pavan, I think we can move on. All right. So I think someone asked me. It was Sambhav who asked me about the application process in a way. So okay, guys, the application process for a deferred MBA program consists of three parts. So the first part is standardized test. You can take either GMAT or GRE. I'm not speaking about subject tests. Subject tests are, sorry, English language tests. Those are TOEFL or IELTS. Those are easy. It's like, those are not a problem at all for anyone to clear. So we are not speaking about those. In terms of standardized test, you either need to take GMAT or GRE. Okay. Bottom line is that if you get a 95th percentile, you are fine. Right? You don't need to worry beyond that. If you have less than 95th percentile, try to be as close to 95th percentile as possible. That's point two. Now, GMAT and GRE have an inherent flexibility, which answers Sambhav's question, that both your GMAT and GRE scores are valid for 5 years. So if you, let's say we are sitting in 2020, and if you, let's say, are graduating this year, then you could have taken GMAT or GRE in 2016 also, and that score would have been valid till now. That should not have been an issue. Okay. So just plan your GMAT or GRE at any point in time. It's completely fine. The GMAT and GRE scores are very valid. A 1-year-old GRE score versus a 5-year-old or 4-year-old GRE score versus GMAT score, it does not matter at all. They, according to them, you just need to be somewhere around this 95th percentile. If you get that, you're good enough from a standardized test perspective. The second part of the equation or the application is written application, which consists of your resume, essays, etc. So you have more components like a letter of recommendations. You have video interviews. It's called as Kira interview preparation. There are other components to written application like application form. Every school is going to ask you a different set of essays. For example, at Yale Silver Scholar, they ask a question about what is the biggest commitment you have ever made and why. At Stanford, they ask a question, what are you most passionate about and why, right? So the questions are very, very different. The way you will answer these essays are very different. The third part, so once you have cleared standardized tests and written application, you submit both these documents. And then from that point on, if you are invited to interviews, you face the interviews and you're given an offer. Okay. Now, now this sounds very simple, right? I mean, this is something that you will find on every school's website. So this is not something special that I've told you. The important thing, however, is that see, if you don't selectively build your profile, you will not get any useful fodder material to write on your essays or speak about in your interviews. That is the reality, right? The acceptance rate of deferred MBA programs is less than 2%, and it's less than 1.5% for Indian applicants. So unless you are selectively building your profile, you will not get into an elite program, right? Because if getting into these programs was so simple, everyone would be getting in and they would be getting jobs at top tier management consulting firms, etc. But since this process is extremely complicated, you need to plan well in advance. You need to seek the right kind of guidance. You need to selectively build out your profile. Doing that and taking these kind of steps is crucial, because if you're not building out your profile, then it will not play into your essays, right? I mean, if you don't have any useful material, then what are you going to write on your essays? For example, if I ask you that, okay, what matters most to you and why? It is not a hypothetical essay. You cannot say that, serving people matters most to me, and then you tell a story about Mother Teresa. That is not how MBA essays are written. On the MBA essay, you need to say that, okay, what matters most to me is helping my community. And then you need to write like 5 or 6 stories around how you have helped your community in the past. So doing this profile building is extremely, extremely important. And in the last section of this webinar, I'll request Pawan to speak more about profile building with you and how Global College Info can help out in terms of helping candidates build out their profile. So I'll ask Pawan to share more details there. But yeah, doing this step, I'm just saying a very logical thing here, and please comment if you agree with this, that unless you actually develop your profile, it is step 2 of the process is going to be very complicated for you to clear. Right, Pawan? So we can move on to the next part.
Yep. So, yes. Any thoughts around externships, Akshay?
Right. So let me just comment in context with this slide itself. So now, as I was speaking on the last slide, that if you want to get into deferred MBA programs, the easiest thing is that get good grades. That is very clear. Everyone is able to do it, right? I mean, for example, if you hit a 740, 750 on the GMAT, then most of the good deferred MBA candidates would have that kind of a score. Right? This is a part which is easily manageable. Second point is that you need to get better internships or externships. So what is the difference between internships and externships is that internships you formally work with a firm. For example, if a company like McKinsey comes onto your campus, they will open up an internship position. An externship would be that you get associated with an organization in some capacity as an external, right? So you're not an internal part of the organization, so to speak, but you're helping out a particular company in some way, right? This could be a startup, this could be a major gold standard firm, this could be uh, this could be an organization with some non-profit or volunteering, etc. So there are a lot of internships and externships opportunities. you're getting echo.
Hello.
Hey guys, there is a lot of echo.
Yeah. Right, I think it's
Yeah,
okay now.
yeah.
Good, right, yeah.
Yeah.
So stats wise, we
Hello.
are okay. Now, in terms of internships and externships, I quickly explained the concept of what internships and externships mean. So keep that in mind that try to get like good internships if possible through your college because you'll have a lot of gold standard or silver standard firms visiting your college, so you can navigate through these internships there. In case you do not get internships, then try to get some externships with certain other organizations, right? For this you can network well with people on LinkedIn. You can network with your college clubs, etc. You can network with your alumni network. They can help you get some kind of project or work opportunities. That is going to be important. Now, the third part is where I wanted to spend some time, which is around building out your profile. So now a lot of people ask me that, hey, what is the right time for me to build out my profile and when should I start? So I want to get into a deferred MBA programs and I am willing to do anything that it takes to get into a school like Yale, Stanford, Harvard. I am currently in my first year. Tell me when should I start developing out my profile? So the simple equation is that the more time you spend on building out your profile, the better your results would be, right? So that is an important point for you to consider because it's not a so a lot of people would come to me in like final year of their undergrad. They will say that, hey, you know what, I have not done many internships, I don't have a good profile, uh, and I have 3 months before this particular deadline and I want to get into Harvard. Now no matter what I do with you, it's not as if that we will be able to get into a top tier school. Why? Not because that you don't want it enough or I cannot help you out enough, but the issue is the time, that we have not spent enough time on your profile to make it better. So bottom line here is, or the key takeaway here is that you need to spend time on your profile to generate better results in terms of to what extent your profile is going to improve. So keep that in mind. This is a very, very important concept that you need to understand about deferred MBA programs. Unless you are selectively building out your profile, you will struggle quite a lot, right? So I think, Pawan, I would unfortunately need to leave, guys. I
Sure.
have an emergency at home. So I would let Pawan continue, and Pawan can speak to you more about the FAQs around deferred MBA. And Pawan can also share my email ID, etc., in case you guys want to reach out to me. I'm more than happy answering any questions that I might not have had an opportunity to answer so far. And Pawan can speak more about profile development and how it relates with deferred MBA programs.
Okay. Thank you, Akshat.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. So guys, as we the next question, one of the questions is what is the ideal resume, right, for these Ivy League colleges? So unfortunately, there is no cookie cutter approach and saying that like, yes, this is the one single ideal resume for all of us, right? To happen. Sorry, I'll just keep everybody on mute. And you can still speak, you can still ask the question, you can unmute yourself and ask the question if you want. Okay, so there is still no cookie cutter answer to what's the ideal resume, right? So you need to have good GRE, GMAT scores. What, as Akshat was saying, is around like the 95th percentile or more than that. Now, on the other side, building your profile side, right? So some of the students actually from right from 10th standard or 11th standard, they say that yes, they are interested in finance, pursuing finance as a career choice, and they want to get into chartered accountancy or something equivalent, and they want to do an MBA 4 years down the line. So what is the best thing for them to do, right? Now, hey guys, please mute yourself. Yes. So, so what should I do to increase my chances in getting into a good deferred MBA program? Right. So, if you have that clarity around, yes, I want to do something specific, right? Yes, I want to get into community service as one of my focal points. So, what you need to work clearly to see, okay, what is that one focal point or two focal points that you want to get through consistently in your application, right? So one of that could be, let's say, analytics, or it could be economics. Whatever it could be, either a subject, it could be a career field, or it could be an interest area, doesn't matter what it is. But there have to be 2 or 3 focal points in your entire journey, and you work towards building these focal points, right? For example, one of the guys' interest was into economics and financial economics, right? So what he did was he went ahead, he did a stock brokering course, and then he went ahead and actually worked for the same stock brokering agency for a few months, and then went ahead and created uh, applied for a case competition about what are the new financial modeling techniques which are upcoming because of data. And then he's applied, and then he wrote a short book about the same financial modeling and also the stock markets and how these all these things are interrelated with the upcoming data analytics and technologies. So now you can see he has done 3 or 4 things independently, right? One is he did a stock market stock trading course. He did an internship with a trading organization. Then he wrote a short book. Then he also went ahead and presented in a case competition. And all of these things sound like different activities, but they are interrelated at some theme, right? So the most important thing, yes, is the ideal resume is always interconnected, right? It doesn't matter. You don't have to follow the exact same steps as the next person, and honestly, you cannot even follow that. But the idea is that you have your own focal points. Those could be 2 or 3 so far, based on your strengths, based on your interest, whatever it is. That's the right way to develop it and right way to get started. And then you continue to build along these focal points for 2 years, 3 years, 1 year at least, and then see what is the progress that you can make, right? It could be interacting with startups, it could be going and writing an ebook, writing a book, writing a or applying for some case competitions, or basically taking this entire project and publishing it for some digital presence, increasing or basically highlighting your own digital presence, right? So these are some of the 4 or 5 things that you can do, but fundamentally everybody's resume is different and everybody's ideal resume is different, and you have to work towards building that resume. As what Akshat was saying, more times gives you better opportunities to improve your resume, right? So what we are doing as a firm for Global College Info is that we said we will go ahead and take each individual student's focal points and try to build a leadership development experience for each one of these students. Either it could be through externships or it could be through different activities, right? Depending on the individual interest area. So if you're interested in developing that leadership profile for yourself, either reach out to me or drop in an email. I'll just put in my email address over here and you can drop an email to me if you're interested in actually developing those focal points. I wouldn't even call them an internship or I wouldn't call a resume, but that's what it is. Yes. So that's what. So it is not about what you are doing part. It is about whether that is connected with your overall story. You cannot just say that I did an internship with so and so Series A funded company, and that is what I have done. And I'm from, doesn't matter. You can say I'm from like IIT Bombay. I have done my internship at this particular company, and this is what I've done. That's the one thing. You are basically competing for 2 to 3% acceptance rates, right? So one thing is not enough. Let me give you a small story. One of the students who has done, who is right now at Wharton's program, what he did was he did a program where he researched and he interviewed more than 500 families living in India and also living in India and Pakistan, inquiring about a act which is called as Enemy Act. You can go and read about it. And this Enemy Act is about if you, when in the time of partition, when you left your country, either Indians moving to Pakistan or Pakistanis moving to India, they have left a lot of their real estate, and that is not being uh, occupied, or nobody is claiming those lands. There are millions of hectares of such kind of lands right now lying in both the countries. So he has written a white paper. He has interviewed more than 5,000 hours of material, and he published it. And that's not his single story. He has like 3 or 4 such stories, right? That's the level of interest that you are seeing from students who want to get in. So a single internship is not something which goes in. You need to have like 3 or 4 individual things combined together to make a strong story. Does that make sense, Parth? Yes. Okay. Any other questions, guys, that you have? Okay, sure, Parth.
Mhm. Hello, Pawan sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Pawan sir, can you please tell that the like in case of externships, so how does it really impact our profile, or does it have any negative impact in comparison to if there are full-time profiles like the people who have full-time jobs?
No, so if you have a full-time job, you basically can't apply for a deferred MBA program, right? So to apply for a deferred MBA program, you either are graduating from your college just now, either at an undergrad level or at a graduate level, right? So that's the whole idea behind applying for a deferred MBA program. So you need to have
Oh,
internships, externships, or at this level from within the college, even if it means taking like the 6 months official off, like what Devang was saying initially. But you cannot have a full-time role.
all right. Thank you, Pawan sir.
Yes, okay, no worries. Hey, Aditya, is it advisable to mention in the SOP that you want to pursue your startup idea during the 2 years? Yes, if you are already done some work and if you have already 5 or 6 stories, if you can write in your essay that yes, this is what you want to do, but these are the 5 things that you have done so far moving towards that next step, right? But if you say all of a sudden the apple is dropping that yes, this is what I want to do, but yes, so what? What have you done in the last 4 years, 3 years, 6 years that you can highlight in your resume or highlight in your essays that you can say with a solid proof that you are already going along that path. So you don't need to mention it explicitly. It should be pretty implicit in what you're writing. Sambhav, so there are two aspects to it, right? One, why do, so Sambhav is asking me like academic score be a hindrance? 10th 85, 12th 85. Yes, so the whole reason is that the academics or the GMAT, GRE, all these testing scores will give you an indication about your academic capabilities to the educational institute, whichever you are applying for, right? So if you are saying that yes, you have a 750, 760 GMAT, you are on 99th percentile GMAT, and you have a valid enough reason about why these individual scores are low, then it doesn't work. It doesn't matter much, right? Because you have a solid reason why this is happening. But if you don't have a reason, good enough reason why the score is low, and you can't even supplement with a high enough GMAT score or GRE score, then there lies a problem, right? So I know somebody who got into Wharton with his GPA was 6.2 in undergrad. He was from BITS planning. His GPA was 6.2, but his GMAT was 760. And he was very clear in his essays that he applied, he was basically working on his startup during his entire 4 years of undergrad, and he didn't care too much about his academics. And he said that, yes, uh, I regretted that fact later, and I tried to improve my undergrad scores towards the end of my third year, and in the entire fourth year, you could see my curve increasing. But there is no doubting his academic capabilities because his GMAT was almost 97, 98 percentile. Yes, so it does make up for that. So, okay, Shashank, what percentage of students receive need-based scholarships? Okay, let's move into the next questions. So, guys, so scholarships. Let me get back to you, Shashank, in a second. But the most important thing to getting into a good deferred MBA or MBA program for that matter is actually money is never a hindrance for a lot of folks. right? Because there are need-based scholarships and there are a lot of options among financing options. I haven't seen many folks. I haven't seen any folks so far dropping the idea of an MBA or after getting an admit because they are not in a position to pay their fees. Right? That has never happened, at least from what I have seen so far. Okay, we'll talk about what are the options available later on, but typically that is not the first thing that you should worry about. And I keep saying that every time to whichever set of audience that I'm speaking. Right? So you should not worry about that at the first step. All you need to worry about is, yes, make sure that your statistics, your undergrad GPA, your entire academic profile is good at one level, or if you have some shortfalls in one area, make sure that you increase in the other. Right? The second one, spend as much time as possible in improving your profile, right? Build the 3 or 4 focal points, make that story consistent across these different focal points, and make sure that stands out really. Like the guy that I was talking about, like one of the guys wrote a book and it's one of the top selling books in Amazon right now. The other guy, he has done 5,000 hours of research on Enemy Act. Not many of us even know there is an Enemy Act, and which did not change from 1947 till date until this guy actually proposed some revisions to that. Right? Those are the kind of things that you need to be talking, and there's no ideal resume as such. It's about what you do. Okay, so keep building about that. And if you are interested to talk more, or if you want to interested in more exploring more options about building your profile, just give me a drop in a message to me, either on LinkedIn or to my email address. Okay, now let's getting into yes, yeah, yes, Devan. It is right because that's again it is a very much a self-discovery process as well, Devan. Discovering your focal points depends on what you have done so far and depends on how much time you have towards your application and what are the things that you need to do in that 1 year so that you maximize your chances, right? So it's not like again a cookie cutter approach. You have to work along the 3 or 4 dimensions that you have. What are your interests? What are your strengths so far? What is the time remaining that you have? And what are the things that you want to do even after your MBA? Because that is also pretty much a part of the story. And all these 3 things, if you want to get into investment banking, or if you want to do finance, chartered accountancy is something which you want to do in the long run. So your focal points should change accordingly. Okay. And now let's get into the question that Shashank was asking, right? What is the need scholarship financing options, right? Typically, Shashank, in the last 2 to 3 years, if you look at Stanford, Harvard, Wharton's business school classes at Deferred MBA, including, or more than 50% have need-based scholarships. Okay, and this amount typically is up to 30 to 40% of the program fee, and you get easily, so depending on whatever you need to shell out of your pocket, you will get 80% financing very easily if you get into one of these top programs that Akshat was talking, right? So if a Yale program or if you get into Yale or Stanford or any of these programs, 80% of your fees you can actually get as a loan from Prodigy Financing, because all the schools, all the top tiered schools have a tie-up with Prodigy Financing already. So you can get a 80% loan pretty easily, and you can cover up for that. You can get those returns. The ROI is pretty high once you do your salaries. If you're looking at either a management consulting job, or if you're looking at an investment banking job, or if you're looking at a product management role, the 3 or 4 most popular roles, or the 3 or 4 roles which take majority of the students, right? Those roles are anywhere between $150,000 to $200,000, right? And so your ROI is pretty high considering the costs involved, and it's not a difficult chance to get a funding. So all these things even out pretty quickly. Okay, Shashank. So it's up to 80% of what you need to spend from your pocket could be is what you can finance from Prodigy Financing, which is not a difficult thing to do. And mostly, almost like 30 to 40, 50% of the students who have requests for the need-based scholarships actually do get it. And that number is also not very small. It's up to like 30%, 40% of the overall fee. So we are talking about big numbers. So imagine up to like a crore, and you see like 30% of scholarship and then 80% of it. So you probably are talking about having 20 lakhs. If you are ready to have like 20 lakhs savings in your pocket to go ahead with it, that's a good starting point. Okay. So I'm not from a target school. Can I still get in? Yes. There's nothing called as a target school, non-target school, because uh, one of the guys who got into Yale Silver Scholar program last year, where the acceptance rate is less than 2%. He is from Institute of Chemical Engineers, right? It's in Gandhinagar, Uttar Pradesh area, Uttar Pradesh or Gujarat, I'm not sure, but he's from that school. He has a very high GMAT. He did some interesting things on his profile, and that's what I've actually added him to. That's what has pushed him into Yale. What GRE, GMAT, what's the acceptance rates, what scholarships, deferred MBAs versus IIMs. Of course, Akshat already spoke about which one has higher brand equity. So from a global perspective, which is having higher recognition, which has higher rankings and all these kind of things very clearly indicate what is the right choice for you to make, right? So I'm just typing in you again my email. If I'm not able to answer any questions in the next few minutes, please feel free to reach out to me through my email. Okay, let's get to some of the questions. Any other questions, guys? Just either feel free to type it in there. Yes, does it make up for undergrad scores? In a lot of cases, yes, and you should also have a good reason. What percentage of students receive need-based? Almost 50% of the Harvard class has that. Also, in say first stage of applications such as ISB, we will get accepted for the second round based on scores below 90% in 12th. Will we get accepted for the second round? Yes, Shreyank. Depends on your GMAT score as well, right? GMAT, GRE score, depending on your overall profile. If you have a good overall profile, this does is not considered to be the most important. It's not like CAT admission, right? The first criteria is not a 90%, or first criteria is not 99.9 percentile on your exam. That's not the first criteria. It's a holistic application process, right? So some of the shortcomings in some parts of the application can be overlooked if you really have good spikes in some other parts of your application. They are not looking for an average student with a medium level spikes across all the factors. They are looking for students who have that extraordinarily high spikes in one or two areas so that the others could be overlooked. How many B schools to apply for in the deferred, which give you access to these coal companies? What people should even consider of applying given that? Yes. So all these uh, top programs, right? Uh, Sambhav, Shashank. So all these top programs, right? Stanford, Yale, Harvard, ISB, Darden, Columbia. Across all these firms, across all these institutes, the gold tier firms are recruiting MBA students, right? For example, McKinsey does recruit almost, if even if you take McKinsey, BCG, Bain, and top consulting organizations, almost 30 to 40% of Columbia's class is going into consulting. Okay, and Harvard, Stanford, these numbers are around 25% going into top tier consulting firms. So if you actually get into any of these firms, uh, you can be fairly confident. I wouldn't say you should be overconfident and you shouldn't do anything. There is still a lot of competition out there too. But fairly good number of students do get into top tier investment banking, boutique firms, and also management consulting, product management roles. Any questions, guys? What do you mean by specialized course for management consultants, man? there's no, you mean you don't want to do an MBA and you directly want to shift into management consulting? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, basically, I am looking forward for management consulting as my career, and I've done a lot of research in that. And I did a job for 3 months where it was related to research, and management consulting was a client that we were facing. So basically, I got a lot of exposure to various uh, sectors and domains. I really liked
Okay.
that part.
Hey, Mehak, 1 second. Let us get back to you because if anybody has questions related to deferred MBA programs, let's take that first, and then we'll.
Yeah, sure. Sure, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure the folks get all the answers specifically towards that first. Hey, Devang, if you want to talk more about, if you want to talk more about this program, feel free to ping me. We can talk more about it. Okay. Shreyank, yes, but GMAT scores are asked in the second round. So in that case, will we get to present our GMAT scores with a strong yes, Shreyank? Mehak, let's go forward. If anybody else has any questions, guys, on deferred MBAs, just type in and let's take Mehak's questions first. So Mehak, yes, you developed an interest towards consulting and now you want to get into consulting, but you don't want to do MBA, right? That's what your question is.
No, I don't quite, I'm not, I was basically confused. I had an interest towards consulting, and that is what my goal was, to enter into a big three and
Okay.
get exposure over there and further
Okay.
apply for an MBA. That is what I wanted to do, to be very sure about my path. So right now, so basically what my background has been, that I have worked
So
for a company. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So for 3 months, I have worked with a company who had management consulting clients, and I have been have done research on various topics for them. So that was quite interesting for me. Rather than after that, I joined EY because I got an opportunity from my college, and
Okay.
as a brand name and being a commerce graduate, I took forward that opportunity to explore better. So I now feel that research and analytics is what I really like, and I keep applying to online courses for that also, and keep doing research. So I'm also preparing for MBA CAT this time, and I'm applying for GMAT. Basically, I've not applied for GMAT right now, but I'm planning to do that. So, because I have had conversation with a lot of people from big threes and whoever I got connected on LinkedIn, and they basically tell you that MBA is the only way you get into management consulting. So I wanted to ask that is there any specialized course, because I googled also, and there is something called IMC, which is a Chartered Management Consultant USA. So is there something like that, and I can go for a specialized course, or should I go for MBA only? That is what my
So if
question is.
so yeah, so if your option, if you are looking forward to get into an MBA, if you are looking forward to get into Big Three, McKinsey, BCG,
Hmm,
Bain, specifically
hmm,
in India, the amount of lateral hiring that happens, right? Not from university campuses, right? If you are in IIT Bombay, if you are in IIT Kanpur, if you are in BITS Pilani, or like there are 5 or 4 colleges where they hire from undergrads
yeah,
for their entry level undergrad level roles. If you are in one of these colleges, you can potentially get in where the competition is extremely high. But
hmm,
if you miss that chance, then the best option, if you are sitting in India, uh, then if you are right now in India, then the best option is to get an MBA. I'm 100% convinced about it because not many lateral hires do get hired in India to start with
hmm.
in the front end consulting roles. Okay,
Okay.
you can probably get into the back-end research role, or you can get into a bunch of other roles. But if you want to be a front-end consultant, then no, there are very, very limited chances because they don't do hirings for these roles laterally.
Hmm.
They either hire undergrads or they hire MBA candidates. So there is no scope for them to hire because
Okay,
their hierarchies don't allow them.
great. Okay, thank you
Okay.
so much.
Yeah.
That is my,
Okay. No
yeah.
worries.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Second, does BITS Pilani qualifies as a tier one college for deferred MBA program? Uh, but how different does it, what is the difference does it makes to, let's say, if you're applying for Yale or if you're applying for any college, even ISB, without a good GMAT, GRE, ACADS, or even forget everything. And if you don't have a good profile, then it doesn't matter if it's a tier one college or tier two college, right? As I was saying, a guy from Institute of Chemical Engineers in Gandhinagar, he got into Yale Silver Collar program, right? Because he didn't, it's not a tier one program, definitely, but he still got in because of his overall profile. So don't worry about this fact. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thank you. I'll send a quick note, follow-up note tomorrow or day after, just to get the link to this conversation. And also, if you have any further questions, if you want to know more about the leadership development experiences, just feel free to ping me and we can take the conversation further. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much. Bye. Hope this was helpful to all of you. Bye, guys.